A couple of weeks ago, I got an interesting challenge. Somebody asked, can I make your egg roll recipe, but bake them rather than fry them, because they don't eat fried foods? And I thought, well, no, you can't, because egg roll wrappers are a raw dough. It's like if you made pasta from scratch and you had pasta dough and you cut it into spaghetti or noodles, you wouldn't bake it rather than boil it. Certain foods require certain cooking. But I got to thinking about this. What if I used phyllo dough sheets to make these egg rolls like I use when I'm making my lamb Viau, which is a Moroccan dish, and also on curious.com. What if I were to use phyllo and then bake the egg rolls rather than fry them? I think this is a fun challenge. It'll be a fun experiment. So let's make these egg rolls. You're going to need some meat, which in my case is cooked chicken. I picked some chicken off the bones of a roasted chicken and cubed it up. If you have raw meat, chicken meat or any meat really, you can cut it up and just cook it enough so that it's cooked through. You don't need to brown it. This is pre-cooked, and this is about a cup. I weighed this. It came out to exactly 6 ounces. This is 170 grams. So I'm using chicken here, but you can use turkey. Pork is very common. You can use shrimp, ham. You can use a mixture of things. I have a couple of stalks of celery here that I rinsed well and trimmed. And I want to just cut these up into long strips first. This doesn't have to be exact. I'm just trying to make things easier for myself, because what I'm looking for is a small dice. Like so. Okay, so there's my celery all diced up. I'm going to put pretty much all of this into one bowl, because when it comes to cooking this, it's all going to be cooked in the same pan. Next, my green onions. I'm going to trim these up. And then these whiter parts, I'm just going to cut through them so that, again, I can just dice this up kind of small. Okay, so there's my green onions into my bowl. 3 of those. I have here 2 ounces of bean sprouts. 2 ounces is about 57 grams. I'm going to chop these up. These don't have to be chopped as fine, but I don't want them as large as I would use, say, in fried rice. I kind of want the bean sprouts recognizable in the egg rolls, but not too big. And then I have here 3 sprigs of flat leaf, otherwise known as Italian parsley. Just going to pull the leaves off. Like so. And I'm going to give this a fairly fine chop. I like this in egg rolls. I think it just gives it a nice flavor. I think of this kind of seasoning as being more of a Western seasoning. I know a lot of Chinese food is what we would call Chinese American. It's the Chinese cooking procedures or traditions, but seasoned more for the Western palate. Okay, that's good. There's my parsley chopped. Just about done here. I'm going to crush some garlic in there. 2 to 3, maybe 4 cloves of garlic, depending upon how small they are. Okay, so there's my garlic in there. And then I have here 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, 1 tablespoon of fish sauce. If you're not familiar with fish sauce, This is extract of anchovy. I used to be able to buy this in the grocery store, but I have to go one more block over to the Asian market to buy it. If you don't have fish sauce or can't find it, a lot of stores sell oyster sauce. This would work just as well, or you could leave it out. It doesn't really matter all that much. Finally, I want to season this. So I have here a mixture of herbs. This is when I go through my cupboard and think, what can I use up that's getting kind of old? I have a little bit of oregano in here, tarragon and marjoram, a pinch of each that I'm going to put in there. Again, I'm seasoning this more for the Western palate. And then I'm going to put some freshly ground black pepper in there. I'm not salting this yet because I'm going to cook this, and then after it's cooked, I'll taste it and adjust it for salt. I've got a skillet here heating on the stove. I'm going to put a couple tablespoons, maybe 1 tablespoon of a cooking oil in there. I'm using corn oil. You can use peanut oil if you want. And then I'm going to put my vegetables in there. And I want to stir fry this to cook the vegetables until they're kind of crisp tender. But I also want to dry out that soy sauce that's in the bottom. I want to get this as dry as possible. So hopefully you can see now that there's almost no moisture at all in the bottom of this pan. If anything is beating up at all, it's the oil. So I'm going to turn my heat off. Then I'm going to transfer this to a metal bowl that I have set aside. And I'm going to let this cool down a little bit before I taste it for salt. My vegetables have cooled down enough. Transfer them to a mixing bowl. Oh, and by the way, the reason why that's so dark is because I'm using a very dark soy sauce and a dark fish sauce. If you use lighter sauces, you won't have that darkness. That's my cooked chicken. I want to get this all mixed up. And then get out my infamous red-handled tasting spoon. I want to get my vegetable in there. All right, let's see what this is going to need. Salt. A little bit of salt, but not much. Just a small pinch. There's so much salt in the soy sauce that's going to have all the salt that I need pretty much. All right, I'm ready to start rolling my baked egg rolls. This is my Phyllo dough. As far as a brand name, they spell it F-I-L-L-O, but right below that you see it's P-H-Y-L-L-O. I pretty near always have a box of this in my freezer because it's so easy to work with. When I want to get rid of leftovers, I can just turn them into pastries. I really, really like this stuff. So here is my Phyllo dough. It's kind of dry here today in Southern California, so I'm keeping some barely damp fabric over my Phyllo dough to keep it from drying out because it'll split as it dries out. And I'm using some clarified butter that I've melted. Just going to lightly brush that with a pastry brush. I'm turning in about 1/3 of that dough because I want to end up with a square. My next sheet that I put on, I'm going to let the excess hang over on this end toward me. And again, lightly butter this. Once you start building it up like this, it gets a little bit stronger, so you don't have to worry as much about it tearing. But it's gossamer thin pastry sheets, and therefore it splits very easily. Okay, so now that is done. I'm going to turn this so it's kind of like a diamond oriented to me. And I'm going to put some of my filling on one end. I have maybe enough filling here for, I'm going to say about 10 to 12 of these bakeable egg rolls. And then I'm going to start rolling up at one end and closing that filling. When I get near the halfway point between these 2 points here, I'm going to fold those sides in like so. And I kind of want these sides either parallel or just tilting in a little bit, angled in a little bit. And then make sure that last corner is well buttered. Beautiful. There's my egg roll. So I got 10 out of all that filling. And then once again, I'm going to brush these with clarified butter. I'm using clarified butter because it has no water in it. And I'm thinking the lack of water will help this pastry to bake up more flaky. So I'm just brushing these with melted clarified butter. And then I have some sesame seeds here. So I'm just going to garnish the top of these with sesame seeds. Normally you wouldn't do this to egg rolls. I do this when I'm making briois. I like the look of it when it comes out of the oven. Meanwhile, I'm heating my oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. That's about 200 Celsius. I don't need to cook the insides because it's already cooked. I just basically need to warm these up and brown them a little bit. If I need to, I can just brown them under the broiler for a minute or so. So there they are, hot from the oven. You can see how I got some nice browning around the edges. I did not have to put those under the broiler. They were just in the oven. If you want to get them darker, if you like them darker, maybe heat the oven up to 425 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 218 Celsius. I'm going to let these cool a little bit now, and then I'll be able to see what they taste like. So there they are plated. If you wanted to make a dipping sauce like a honey mustard sauce or something, you could put that in a bowl in the middle and use that for dipping. But these now I think are cooled down enough that I want to see what they taste like. Okay, there they are, my baked egg rolls, baked rather than fried. I so want to see what this is going to taste like. I've got a cloth here because I'm sure this is going to flake. Just as savory, delicious as fried egg rolls, but with a nice flaky, crunchy pastry shell. These are very good. So excuse me, I'm going to go enjoy my baked egg rolls. For a printable PDF copy of this recipe with step-by-step photographs, visit my website, mobilehomegourmet.com, and look on the home page or in the recipe archive.